Welcome back to Psalm 14, which is 13 in the Greek numbering. Let's take a look for this video at verse 2, and again, we'll make a few more connections to Romans. Now, this is the Lord's response to the fools and their rejection of him, really, in verse 1. So let's dig in. Kyrios, ek tu uranu diekupsen, epi tus huius ton anthropon, tu idain, e esten sunion, e exaton ton theon. Well, we start here, of course, the subject. So Kyrios here, we're pivoting from the fool to the Lord. He's now going to respond, and he is from heaven, and the verb here is diakupsen, which is from diakupto. So again, you'll see a past time indicator after the dia. You have the psi here, which has an S that has square of stopped with the P. So all that tells us a third singular aorist active indicative. In fact, we've seen that the aorist form is the operative verb throughout this entire psalm, which is pretty interesting. It doesn't necessarily mean this happened one time in the past. This is perhaps a gnomic aorist, the idea of a collective or a comprehensive aorist. This is a state of existence, if you will, of both what the fool does and then how the Lord responds anytime someone does this, something like that. So not just like a simple past. But I digress. Diakupto is to stoop down, to peep at something. So it's kind of a weird word. He's peering down from heaven, if you will. And who's he looking at? Epi tus huius, upon the sons, ton anthropon there, upon the sons of men or mankind. A typical Semitic way of referring to just everyone, all the people, if you will. Now, why is he looking down? To idain. So this is, in some sense, completing the thought of the diakupsen. I wouldn't call it a complementary infinitive because it does have the article here. It's more a purpose infinitive, but it is building on this idea. Why is he stooping to look or to peep? And then it's from horao, of course. And notice the spelling change to id. So this is going to be an aorist active infinitive, a purpose infinitive. So to look or to see. And then we have a conditional if, esten, if there is, sunion. Now that's from suniemi, nominative singular masculine, present active participle here with that omega nu ending. And this means to understand, or to know, if you will. So to see if there's anyone who understands, and this is very similar to the poion in the prior verse. And then we have an or, and then exaton, same morphology, same nominal singular masculine, but this is to seek out or to search for. Ton theon. So if there's anyone who understands or seeks for God, you'll notice I'm throwing an anyone or something like that in there. We might expect an article or something like that to substantivize both of these participles. That's how I'd probably render it, even though it's not technically there. Now, I'll point out one little interesting thing. This eta here, which is the or connector, is omitted or it's obelized in some Greek manuscripts. Now, why would that be? Now, I'm going to cover the hexapla down the road, but the obelisk here means that it is found in Greek, but it is not found in the Hebrew. And that is indeed true. If we look at the Masoretic tradition, which I take this to be the one that the psalmist, or at least that tradition was in front of the translator here, it's maskil and then doresh. There is no vav or no other connector in between the two. In fact, what you have, Hebrew is an athnat pause here. These are two separate ideas. There's no one understanding, pause, seeking God. And so some Greek translators leave this out to reflect that, because this would be, maskil would be the sunion, and doresh would be the exaton. Others have thrown it in there, apparently, to try to smooth it out and actually link these two ideas together, as opposed to separate them, as was apparently the case in the Hebrew. So interesting kind of thing to look at in comparison to the vocalization in the Masoretic. Now, let's take a look at Romans 3 again. And now we're moving up. We looked at Romans 3:12 in the prior video. Let's move back up to 3:10 through 11, where Paul says, no one is righteous, no, not one, which I take to be basically from Ecclesiastes 7, verse 20. We're going to get into this on the special video coming up, taking a look at all this evidence. But here we kind of have a slight remix, if you will, of this final clause. No one who understands, uk esten has sunion. So notice you got the esten and the sunion there, easy peasy. But you have the article here. That's what I would have expected, at least in the Greek translation. So our instincts might be right. And then no one seeks for God. So you got your esten repeated, exaton once again, and then ton theon once again with the article. So that's why I was kind of translating it that way in the psalm form, because Paul does it that way in his own retrieval of this passage. So once again, Paul is drawing on Psalm 14 to say, look, because of the godlessness of humanity, not only is no one righteous, but no one even tries to seek for God. Of course, a lot of folks will say, hey, this is a good argument against, seeker sensitivity in the church or so forth. That's a conversation for a different day. But the psalmist does say no one actually seeks after or pursues God. So that's round 2, looking at Romans 3. We're still not done with Romans 3. We'll come back to it in the next verse, which is a doozy. So stay tuned for Psalm 14, verse 3.